The sun was barely up, casting a soft glow over my backyard in Pine Hollow, Tennessee, when I took my first sip of coffee that Tuesday morning in June 2024. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass, and my well water clean, crisp, and entirely mine made the orange juice taste like freedom. I'd bought this property 4 years ago, a cozy 3-bedroom just outside the Willow Creek Homeowners Association's reach, specifically to avoid their suffocating rules. No monthly dues, no nosy neighbors dictating my mailbox color. Just me, my garden, and a well pump that hummed quietly in the yard. But that morning, as I sat on my deck, a process server's car crunched down my gravel driveway. The guy looked sheepish, like he knew the papers he handed me were nonsense. I thanked him, watched him drive off, and opened the most ridiculous legal document I'd ever seen. A lawsuit from the Willow Creek HOA, led by Margaret Hensley, claiming I owed $20,000 for stealing their water for 6 years. I'm Ethan Carter, 38, a financial planner who spends his days untangling numbers and paperwork. The lawsuit alleged I'd somehow tapped into their water main through solid limestone, a feat that would have required a superhero's tech or a construction crew nobody noticed. I laughed out loud, picturing myself as some mastermind drilling secret tunnels under my neighbor's azaleas. The accusation was so absurd I read it twice, half expecting a hidden camera crew to pop out. But the detailed diagrams professional, not scribbled, showed fake pipe connections from my house to their system. Someone had put serious effort into this lie, and it wasn't just petty neighbor drama. They wanted my money, my yard dug up, and my reputation trashed. The papers demanded immediate payment, legal fees, and permission to inspect my property for pipes that didn't exist. My garden, 3 years of raised beds, peach trees, and morning coffee perfection was at risk of becoming their excavation site. I walked my property line that morning, tracing the surveyor stakes that separated my land from Willow Creek's. A shallow stream and 60 yards of dense forest stood between us. Running pipes would have meant boring through rock, crossing water, and climbing a hill costing more than my house was worth. Yet, their lawsuit claimed I'd pulled it off without a trace. It was like being accused of robbing a bank with a spoon. The consumption data they provided was eerily precise. Gallons per day, seasonal spikes, even estimates for my dishwasher. How could they know my usage unless they'd been spying? My gut, honed by years of spotting financial fraud, told me this wasn't just a mistake. Someone with utility company access was feeding them data, or they'd hired experts to fake it. I should have called my lawyer, Sarah Jennings, right away, but she was tied up with a corporate case for another week. The lawsuit demanded a response in 10 days, so I decided to handle the initial reply myself. I had county permits for my well, for years of zero municipal water bills, and a property inspection report proving my independence. The truth seemed bulletproof. My dad always said honest folks have nothing to hide, and liars trip over their own stories. But as I sat on my deck, studying their fabricated charts, a flicker of doubt crept in. What if they'd planted something to frame me? The effort behind this lawsuit suggested they weren't just fishing for a payout they believed they could win. That evening, I walked into the Willow Creek Community Center for their HOA meeting, expecting a discussion but stepping into a trap. The room was packed, 60 people in a space meant for 40, with extra chairs and residents lining the walls. The air buzzed with hostility before anyone spoke. Margaret, 55, blonde, and dressed like she was running for mayor, commanded the room with a projector, handouts, and a laser pointer she wielded like a sword. Her slides showed water usage spikes, claiming my theft was costing each household $15 a month. A woman in the front row live-streamed it, comments flooding in with jeers and calls for my arrest. Margaret's narrative painted me as a scheming outsider leeching off their hard-working community. Neighbors I'd nodded to at the gas station now glared like I'd robbed their homes. Her right-hand man, Thomas Reed, the HOA manager, fed her documents and whispered updates. At 42, he had the twitchy energy of someone juggling too many secrets. Their evidence charts, utility letters, technical specs was so polished it could have fooled a jury. When they opened the floor, the questions turned personal. Why live so close if I didn't want to contribute? Was I stealing packages too? One guy swore he'd seen me skulking near his fence, scouting. I stood to defend myself, heart pounding, explaining my well and septic system, but Margaret was ready. She flashed slides about decoy wells and sophisticated theft, twisting every word I said into proof of guilt. The room erupted in murmurs, and I felt like I was drowning in their judgment. Mrs. Larson from Cedar Lane asked if I'd caused her low water pressure. Mr. Gomez wondered if his high bills were my fault. These were people I'd waved to for years, now convinced I was a criminal mastermind saving $10 a month on water. After the meeting, Thomas cornered me in the parking lot, offering a $2,500 settlement and a connection to their utilities to avoid court. His fake sympathy and eagerness to settle screamed red flags. If their case was so solid, why negotiate? As I drove home, I overheard neighbors plotting to post about me online, warning other communities about utility thieves. By morning, I'd be the county's most wanted water bandit. Thomas's slip about prepared evidence stuck with me. You don't prepare evidence unless you're staging the crime. At 8 a.m., I walked into the Pine Hollow Utilities office, a sterile building reeking of bleach and bureaucracy. Clerk Emily Harper raised an eyebrow as I slid the lawsuit through the security slot. When I mentioned the forged diagrams, her demeanor shifted from bored to intrigued. Privacy rules blocked my initial request for utility maps, but the lawsuit changed everything. After 20 minutes of digging through digital records, Emily confirmed my property had no connection to Willow Creek's system ever. Aerial maps, permits, and logs from 15 years back showed my well was standalone. But then she froze, calling over her supervisor, Greg Thompson. 3 weeks ago, someone had uploaded a fake map tying my house to their water line, authorized by Thomas Reed. Greg explained that altering utility records was a federal crime, potentially triggering FBI scrutiny. My hands shook as I saw the forged file on Emily's screen, my name tied to a lie that could have ruined me. They printed the original and falsified maps, complete with timestamps and seals, and gave me FBI contact info. Greg warned that infrastructure fraud cases take months and perpetrators often escalate when cornered. As I left, my phone buzzed with a text. A photo of me entering the office, timestamped, with the message, "Stop digging or face consequences." My stomach dropped. Someone was watching me, with gear good enough to catch my face from across the street. But their threat backfired. It proved I was onto something. At 2 p.m., an unmarked envelope appeared in my mailbox, containing photos of Thomas and 2 men in utility coveralls burying PVC pipes near Cedar Lane at midnight. The telephoto shots captured license plates and serial numbers, taken by someone with serious skills. Was this a neighbor helping me or another player in this game? I grabbed a metal detector from my friend Mike and drove to the site. The pipes were props disconnected, shallow, a stage set for Margaret's lawsuit. Mike, instead of supporting me, eyed me suspiciously, muttering about my perfect water pressure. Even friends were turning. Then Margaret called, her voice sharp, accusing me of trespassing on utility property. I recorded her as she rambled about sensitive monitoring equipment that didn't exist, Thomas whispering frantically in the background. 3 men in utility coveralls showed up, claiming to be from Willow Creek Services, but their badges looked cheap, and they got nervous when I asked for permits. I snapped photos of their truck and faces before they sped off. Emily confirmed no such company existed. Their abandoned gear fake gauges and props had rental tags from Harper Tools, tied to Thomas's credit card, flagged for fraud. At the federal courthouse in Nashville on June 12, 2024, I faced Margaret's legal team, 3 attorneys in tailored suits, led by Catherine Brooks, with Thomas hauling a cart of binders. Judge Michael Harper, a no-nonsense veteran, listened as Catherine spun a tale of me as a cunning thief. My evidence county records, photos, recordings felt flimsy against their polish, but I pressed on. Emily's documents exposed the forged map, and my recording of Margaret's threats played like a confession. The gallery gasped as photos showed Thomas staging pipes. Then Greg Thompson, the utilities supervisor, took the stand. He'd risked his job to testify, revealing Thomas's bribery attempts and threats against his family. Greg exposed a scheme targeting vulnerable homeowners, elderly, immigrants, low-income, forcing $50,000 in settlements over 2 years. Margaret's team crumbled. Catherine's objections failed, and Thomas's lies unraveled under Judge Harper's questions about impossible engineering. Margaret's outburst, "Outsiders like him ruin our community," sealed her fate, admitting discriminatory intent. The judge dismissed the case, referring Margaret and Thomas for federal charges, fraud, conspiracy, civil rights violations. As FBI agents cuffed them, the gallery cheered. Outside, reporters swarmed, but I let the court records speak. Agent Laura Bennett said my fight gave them the evidence to dismantle a multi-county fraud ring. Willow Creek transformed without Margaret's iron grip. Neighbors collaborated, property values soared. I got $12,000 for malicious prosecution, but the real win was knowing no one else would face this nightmare. My garden, circling that honest well, became my victory monument. Every sip of water reminded me that 3 days of courage saved families I'd never meet. This wasn't about water, it was about standing up when lies try to bury you. So what would you have done? Would you have paid the settlement to avoid the fight, or risked everything for the truth? If someone framed you, how far would you go to clear your name? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this got your blood pumping, and subscribe for more stories where ordinary people face extraordinary fights. Let's keep the conversation going because the truth doesn't win unless we fight for it.